everyone, and welcome to Star Trek Trek, our ongoing journey through the episodes of Star Trek as we watch them. We have just finished Season 3, Episode 4's Who Watches the Watchers, featuring a very charismatic Jean-Luc Picard. We're going to talk about something very urgent here. So we did this on the watch-along, and if you only watch the reviews, you will have missed this amazing... So every time we do a watch-along, we watch the trailer first, and this stood out to us. So I'm going to play this to you guys. So
Death target on Star.
Death target. Why is it a death target? Let me just go back. So
Death target on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Welcome to Death Target, everyone. Oh, how do we feel about this episode? Who watched the Watchers? Okay, when was the last time you watched this episode, guys? And Big, why did you pick this one for your draft?
I said before the rewatch, it has always stuck with me. I've always loved this episode, and I feel like it's not talked about with some of the other early great episodes of TNG. So I was really happy to get another chance to revisit it.
Nice.
So we said that the last episode we reviewed was Up the Long Ladder. We said that one felt like disparate episodes. I feel like this is two episodes exactly, King Solomon in half, where you have this sort of meandering episode, mostly held up by Ron Jones in the first half, and then this like absolute banger distillation of Gene Roddenberry's vision for the future in the second half. What did you guys think? Did it feel like there was a juxtaposition there?
It's weird, you know.
I think.
Sorry. Yeah. No, this. There's definitely a before and after, and essentially it is like when they discover about the Picard, and like beforehand, you're kind of. I think you said it quite well in the watch along auto. In that Ron Jones held up a lot of like the shots across the canvas that is Vasquez Rocks as Ray Wise's character sort of like tries to sort of scramble up the rock face, and it's kind of two halves. And I think once they sort of discover about the Picard, and then it becomes sort of like the kind of the nature of the Prime Directive comes into play in this episode, and this is kind of probably the biggest episode to kind of showcase the Prime Directive in its full entirety, really. Other episodes kind of deal with it as a kind of an aside, as a consequence. Yeah, pen pals possibly. This is kind of like the sort of like they always sort of refer to, we can't interfere with that. We'll betray the Prime Directive, but it comes into play here and is explained to the locals as well. So I've gone wildly off topic. Stars, you were going to say something.
What was I going to say? So I think that there is to a degree, a juxtaposition of the first half and the second half. I think, however, that the first time you're watching it through, you really don't feel that. Like, I always kind of keep that in mind when we watch an episode of what does this look like to a first-time viewer, and what does this look like to us who have watched this episode? Like, I've seen this episode probably at least 4 or 5 times. I think some of us along here have already seen it even way more, in the double digits at least, right? But I always think about the first time that I watched this with Brody and Marie. Like, I think for every episode of Star Trek and how they took to it. And for them, like for the first time viewer, there is no separation. The two parts are intimately linked. Like the second half doesn't work without the first half in terms of you have no investment in Nuria and her people and her plight and what it actually means to be a Mintarkan and what would be lost if they allowed them to fall into the Dark Ages, if you don't get to see them working it out. Like, you say it's meandering, and it's like, to a degree it is. I think that there's like, you could easily tighten it up a little bit with like
physically
a few
meandering is...
Yeah, but I think that's important, because to the Mintarkans, like, to people who are without... who are stuck in the Bronze Age, who are still grasping with superstition and slowly rejecting it and coming around to science. That's what life is. It's meandering and trying to find answers, and grasping concepts and trying to isolate your own path in the world because there's no one who can tell you what to believe. So, like, you have that meandering thing of, well, the Mintarkans don't understand. You need to watch that process play out. so that when Nuria is beamed up, you absolutely understand what her mindset is, and then the crystallization and the steps of that crystallization in Picard, you have the emotional context for it. And I don't know. I feel like there is that separation, but I feel like it's necessary. Like you have this disparate view of the world as the Mintakans see it, the world as Starfleet sees it, and then the marrying of the two.
I think
into, like you say, into that Gene Roddenberry vision of what the world is.
the one
But
thing
I think also just you sorry.
no,
Well, I think you don't want to overcommit on the Mintakans too early in the script. It's like you want to leave them kind of vague and mostly a blank slate so that you can shape the rest of the story and them along with it. That's like you don't want to, make too many things concrete too early.
There's one thing on the Mintakans, and I think it's pointed out, and I've never noticed in this episode before, but it's pointed out earlier that they're talking about them and they're saying like they're very logical. They're very, like their Vulcan ancestors. They are very sort of disproportionate and emotional, and sorry, not unemotional. They take things logically and sort of talk it through. And apart from Ray Wise's character, who goes a bit batshit insane at the end, but Liko, yeah, they actually then show examples of that, and they show it like when they're talking about Troy and Riker and Palmer being abducted, and like later on when they're trying to rationalize and sort of work things out, you see those traits. It's not just a case of show but tell but don't show. They kind of do both, which is a very rare thing, and it's kind of appreciated for myself.
Yeah, I think that what's the context with Liko is that we see all these examples of characters who are, like I say, calm, rational. They are not immune to superstition.
Until they're
they
death targets.
Until they're death targets. And then you've got Liko, and Liko does very much stick out as this superstitious, emotionally frail, volatile element. And you kind of think, well, this is like why is he so much unlike the other ones? And the thing is like, I think in our heart of hearts, we all wish that we were Nuria, but I think that a lot of the time, if you were thrust into in a situation like this, we would kind of react a bit more like Liko. Like, if I came to rush again, like something that I genuinely had reason to believe could give life and take away death, I would have. What's the very first thing you ask for is something for yourself or something for someone that you love. You don't immediately start thinking to break it down rationally if you are presented with something that every sense that you have is telling you goes one way. Like, it's one thing if it was, like, say, one of us. Like, even then, like, we've had so much evidence nowadays of how many people would fall victim to superstition or to irrational thinking because of what our own biases tell us we want to believe.
It's a weird thing, because imagine if
we all want to be Nuria, but how many of us would actually be Liko?
But well, the thing is, like, if you were Nuria and you're presented with the Picard and you didn't quite buy into it, and you said to him, "Oh, could you bring?" If you knew you were in front of the ultimate being and you could ask for anything in the world, anything at all, with a chance that it might be on
Season 5 of Enterprise, obviously, is what we would all ask for.
I was going to see Season 6 of Lower Decks, but okay, fine. We think in different circles. That and pay my mortgage off. But yeah, no, it shows to kind of a character as well. But whether they... okay, here's my question to you guys. How far do you think they lent into the noble savage element of these characters?
Hold on. Before we get there, I want to talk a little bit more about Liko. I think the character is fine. You do need the driver. You need the threat, the suspense. I don't think Ray Wise does particularly well in this. I also don't like him as Arturis in his other Trek appearance. I don't know if you remember him. He plays the vice president. I forget his name even in 24.
Oh.
And his part in that plot is the rest of the characters don't know if he's part of a conspiracy. And so when you watch him act, he has to ride the line between, is he part of the conspiracy or is he an innocent bystander? And he displays a lot of nuance in that. I don't think there's much nuance here. Part of it is understandable. He sees the Picard, okay, and he goes up to like an 8. And for the whole rest of the episode, he stays at an 8, trying to convince people, and he's animated, but he's not overly animated. And even then when he gets to Picard, I feel like he doesn't kick it into that other drive that I want when he again comes face to face with this character that he's been ranting about the entire episode. Like, he should have been really crazy. And then at the end, they cut the scene, and when he comes back, he's totally, again, almost devoid of emotion, and he understands entirely the logic behind it. And it's like he goes from like a 2 to an 8 and then back to a 2 at the end, and I didn't see a lot of nuance in between. When we reviewed the Twilight Zone episode, The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, Dan and I thought, okay, we can see that paranoia kick up like that. And Stars and Idol, you said, I thought it was a little unrealistic as to how fast it went up. And it's funny that, you know, in this now, granted, you actually do see the Picard and you see Palmer. So they see actual evidence of aliens. But I think, again, it works like the paranoid jumping up. They even go maybe even slower than I would expect because they want to emphasize the logical aspect of it. But I do like that the paranoia slowly like grips the community as they see more and more evidence. I just don't think Ray Wise did great in his portrayal.
I can understand that. Yeah, I can understand that.
So I have a little bit of a theory on that, and it's something that kind of pops up periodically when actors are playing Vulcans, is that they read playing a Vulcan as doing everything flat. So I think maybe him going to 8 was his going to 10 as a proto-Vulcan character, and there wasn't another gear, because then if you try to take anything above that, that goes beyond what he would interpret as being, Vulcan. It's just a thought.
Because I don't think he's a bad actor. I just, in this particular role, is a little off to me. Sorry, Stars.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, yeah, I think there is absolutely an instance, especially with Vulcans, where it's like the guest actors are either like you have your big greats, right? You have Nimoy, you have Leonard, you have like Blalock. I think Peck also is like kind of up there. You have Tim Russ, obviously, who's amazing. And then you have like Gary Graham, I think does a pretty good job. And then you have a lot of really bad ones. Like you have like a lot of like I think Enterprise Vulcans, especially, just like are unable to ride the line of like being like a dick, but it's also a case of it's colored by the writing. I think also maybe DS9's what's his name, Solok, like the head of the
you have Sakath from Sarek, who did pretty darn well as
And yeah, I think it's just a case of like how well does the actor understand the assignment? How not all of them can do it. Like you say, like it's a case of that role in 24 of like writing the nuance and showing and acting out subtext. Do you know if if Ray Wise was told if he was part of the conspiracy or not and knew how to play it, or if he was left in the dark until?
I don't know, because they tend to drag that out in that show, so the resolution might not come to like 4 or 5 episodes later. So I couldn't tell you, but
because I'd be interested to see if he knew the context of that and how to play it.
Wait, so let's talk about 24 watch podcast? Fuck yeah, let's go.
Because as I'm running down the list, like Liko and his daughter OG were like not fantastic.
OG.
And then you have Fento, who does some small nuanced stuff that I enjoy, and then Nuria, like as the face of the Mintakans, the episode works because she works as an actress.
Okay, so this episode was written by Richard Manning, who as two people wrote this episode. One of them was Richard Manning,
and Hunk Beam Up.
Sorry. Okay, who also wrote Coming of Age,
Where Logic Face.
Yesterday's Enterprise, Allegiance, Paradise from DS9. Also wrote Shades of Grey, from what little there was of that. Was also co-written by Hans Beimler, who also wrote all those episodes, but then struck out on his own with a lot of DS9 episodes, including Swords of Kalis, Trials and Tribulations, Empok Nor, Far Beyond the Stars, Siege of AR-558, which we reviewed, What You Leave Behind. So some good credits there.
That's a resume. Yeah.
Good resume. This was directed by Robert Weimer, who did would go on. I think it was one of his first ones he did for TNG. Would go on to do Data's Day, Violations, Schisms, Lessons, Parallels, and from DS9 Profit and Loss. So yeah, some good resume. There's a good sort of hitter, and this is one of the episodes I kind of characterize as sort of having that early TNG season 3 feel. Because there was kind of treading the line between like, right, we'll come back past the writer's strike. We need to write these sort of heavy hitting episodes. We've had a bit of time. We've changed the uniforms. We've kind of changed the characterizations because Picard is a different person after this point. But it still retains a few of the little familiar little things from early TNG. Like we've got the Ron Jones sort of sparkly soundtrack. We've got some of I don't know, some of the characterizations, but guys, the one thing I want to sort of talk to you about, like I know this is the first episode where the Prime Directive comes under full fire. What are your thoughts on how they dealt with the Prime Directive here?
If I can just give a word about the direction, the Vasquez Rock stuff, some of it is great, that tracking shot when Troy and Riker first beam down, but I feel like they tarry on it a little long, and that's where Ron Jones has to make up the difference. They're like, okay, we're going to be doing this location shooting, let's make the most out of it. But there was a lot of running around in the rocks that, I don't know, if you gave it over to the second half, how much more can you expand that and still keep up the excellent pace and the excellent dialogue? Maybe they could have given them another 5 minutes or something in that regard.
Yeah, in terms of like the season 3 feel, like I'm looking at TNG season 3 and the beginning of it, and you've got Evolution, the Ensigns of Command, the Survivors, Who Watches the Watchers, the Bonding, Booby Trap, the Price. Like, there's a lot of episodes that I would characterize as simple but effective in terms of laying out what. Because let's be real, we've found a lot to like in occasional episodes of season 1 and 2. But as a show, it's very scattered, and its ideas are not always easily boiled down into a single episode. So I feel like a lot of season 3 is like, we need to codify this, we need to codify this, we need to codify that. And I feel like if you look at it from that instance, I feel like the simplicity works in that regard because you start a conversation and you can develop it. You know, like if we're talking about the Prime Directive, you need this episode so that you can start having stuff like Homeward, so you can start having like stuff like what's the other one? Is it Progress? I think Progress kind of also in terms of the Prime Directive and interference in alien cultures.
First Contact has a lot of elements from this.
Exactly, yeah. So it's like if you're talking about it in terms of archetypes, I think it is very archetypal. But there is a strength in setting down the archetypes so that you can have a framework within which to work. Like you have to do the necessary groundwork in order to lay the foundation, as it were.
Picard strikes me as uncharacteristically reserved in this one. I'm looking at those early season 3 episodes. The Survivors, when he works out what's happening on Rana, he's a little more animated. In Booby Trap, when he gets to go hang out on the Promelian battlecruiser, he's almost giddy. Riker calls it out when he gets back. The Enemy, when he's jousting with Tomalak. I mean, I could go on the Defector when he talks to Jirok. And in this one, he's so dispassionate. It works. I don't think it's the wrong choice, but it does. Yeah. Then why didn't you let them die? And when he's, I guess the most animated he's getting is when he talks about the Prime Directive and how sacrosanct it is for the Federation.
It's a weird contrast between, like, because his season 1 and 2 self is a lot more sort of authoritarian, and I'm going to be the higher command here, and I'm going to have this sort of almost naval British talk. But then he softens for season 3. He almost has you start to see the sort of reflect. And this is Patrick Stewart's probably involvement and Gene probably stepping away a little bit more at this point, where he's then starting having a bit more input and saying, well, I'm going to have these thoughtful moments. I'm going to have these bits where you can see him react. And Patrick Stewart's reactions in this episode are some of the best, because that's how you kind of get the scale for what the Prime Directive means to him. In that, how, especially when his conversations with Nuria, when he gets through to her and then he doesn't. When back in the Ready Room and she pleads with him, and he sort of has to put his head, or figuratively put his head in his hands and sort of take a step back and say, I've not got through to you. And that's kind of the difference to me. And like, you wouldn't see that in season 1 or 2 of TNG with Picard.
And see, that's the only moment of the entire conversation with Nuria that doesn't quite hit for me because it means that Picard doesn't quite get it either. It's like he's trying to see things from their perspective. I mean, I think it's the whole second half of the episode is Picard at his most Socratic, really, because he's trying to lead. I forgot the character's name already. Nuria. Lead Nuria to the direction that he's trying to get them to abandon this, the superstition of the past. And the only way you can do that is for them to see it and then for them to have it be their own idea. But so he has to be able to understand that she's not necessarily going to follow that in a straight line path. There can be regressions and, things where she's thinking through, well, yeah, but you did this, so why couldn't you do this? And be able to anticipate that. So I think that not being able, I didn't reach you, well, not necessarily. I think you reached her most of the way. She just doesn't fully grasp it yet, and you still need to do some more work, is what that meant to me.
Yeah, I think in terms of like the point that Otto's getting of him being at his coldest, I think that like there is absolutely a point of him in season 3, these opening episodes being more clearly defined in different capacities of like, the Ensigns of Command with the Sheliak, you're seeing him as the Brinksman. With the Defector, you're seeing him as like the Starfleet military commander. And here I think he's, like you say, he's most coldly philosophical. And I think that's part of the reason why that moment actually works for me, is because if you take Picard as trying to emotionally remove himself from the situation and see this with cold, dispassionate logic, as Starfleet would want him to do, he has that great moment with Crusher where, like, he says to maybe you should let her die, and you can see her take a moment to collect herself and not just snap, "Shut the fuck up, Jean-Luc," because she is so much a bleeding heart. And she has to reach him on that rational level. And that sets up him going for the rationality. And he walks her through this, like you say, it's a Socratic dialogue. It's like, if I go through this, you understand that. If we understand that, then I move you to this point. And now you have understand the framework and we have set up like our dialectics, right? And he's like, cool, as a philosopher, I have now reached you through dialectics. You should now understand. And then Nuria, like a real person, goes, but wait. And he's like, fuck, yeah, I forgot I'm not dealing with a philosophical argument. I'm dealing with a real person. And that's when he has to get a bit more emotionally involved and appeal to emotion. And I feel like that's kind of like Picard's own little journey through here, is he has to reconcile that dispassion with the fact that dispassion just doesn't work the instant you hit, oh, the Prime Directive is contaminated, we have to work with it. And I think that I did mention it during the watch along. I think it bears repeating that it's absolutely ridiculous that with as many Prime Directive violations as there are, Starfleet really should have a manual on how to deal with it. Like, obviously, it won't be one size fits all, but he seems so unprepared to deal with it. I like that he's unprepared. It's nice seeing Picard deal with that vulnerability, but like, come on, guys.
We need
more internal affairs episods.
Yeah, you had the scientist guy turn around and say, "Well, Picard, you've just got to become their god and tell them what to do." The sort of
that fucking guy.
Yeah.
So to put a bow on the dispassion, I don't dislike it. It stands out to me that this almost feels like it's from a different season.
Yeah.
The reason it works is if you look at this as the seminal First Contact episode, every time they do a First Contact episode, the conflict comes from the fact that if you have a fucking heart and you see what those people are going through, how can you not reach out and help? Pen pals, that little voice in the void of Sarjenka calling out, how can you not do it? The only way to fight that is with dispassion. The reason why the law exists is because it is hurt more than it has helped. And so to fight that passion, that gut-wrenching call to the void, it has to be dispassion. And so even though that may not have fit within like the arc of season 3 or whatever, I think it highlights why the law exists, and then it highlights the conflict of those kind of episodes. So if you wanted to say this was like the pivotal, the seminal First Contact episode, I would not argue.
Yeah, I think that, like, especially if you compare it with Symbiosis, like, I think that Symbiosis is such, like, an absolute abject failure of how to epitomize the Prime Directive as a law worth following. And this is exactly how you do it right, because you watch it, like, you get to this point in season 3, and you're like, the Prime Directive's so fucking stupid, man. Like, just, like, I understand it's your law, whatever, but, like, you just break it when, like, whatever. And then you get to this episode, and you see what, like, a tiny little thing like causes. You see how thoroughly it upends their lives. You see just how much of an effect it has. And by the end of it, you're going, fuck, the Prime Directive is actually important. Fuck, I hate that they're right. I hate that it's correct.
Damn it.
And, like, you have
document
that
telling us what to
struggle,
do.
and but that struggle is so important. Like, that's why you're absolutely right, Otto. Like, the struggle between the two and how you reconcile them is like, so, it's such a Roddenberry thing. Like, actually,
It's his crescendo, which I love. I called out when we were watching. Now you're asking me to sabotage that achievement, to send them back to the dark ages of superstition and ignorance and fear. No, and you can just see him build as he's almost working it through his own head. It's like, why does this law exist? All right, because if we do this, it harms him in this way, and it is an achievement, I think, for them to grow in the ways that they have. So, I got to call out my. Oh, please.
Sorry. Well, no, I was just going to say that I think part of what sells it, and it's something that it only comes through every so often, was just Picard's deep underlying reverence for the Mintakans as a people. Like, he really is taking ownership and stewardship of just nudging them along and keeping them on the path that he thought that they were on before any of this happened. And just, like, that's typified most in the line of, when why do I keep forgetting her name? Good grief. Nuria. Yeah. So it's like, maybe one day we'll build ships like this. And he said, of that I have absolutely no doubt. Because he sees himself and the Federation in general in the Mintakans. And he wants the best for their future. So that's where I think it comes from, and it reads as dispassionate a lot, but it's coming from a place of love and respect, I think.
Okay. Final
I'm going to
point.
call on my boy Dan, who chose not to be here today, but he really likes Troy in this episode.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I
He really
can't-
likes
I can't.
Troy in this episode. And she's solely competent. We gave her like a flower, a petal in the last episode. She's much better in this one.
Yeah.
She's on the planet. The little byplay with Riker throughout. What did you guys think of Troy?
Cold and competent. I mean, like, she's literally looking at an arrow about to shoot her, and she's just like, hey, do you ever consider your gods are not real? And, like, the balls on her, like, to do
That line, that's
Um,
the problem with God, is knowing what they want.
Yeah,
That's kind of the crux of the entire episode.
And there's a cute moment with
Yeah.
her and
And-
Riker as they're sort of like, they're freshly beamed in and they're having a little bit of banter back and forth, and it's fine. It's nice. I think this is the better
Very
showing
cute.
from Troy. And I don't want to say, sorry, that sounds so dismissive of Marina Sirtis. A better showing of Troy's writing in this episode.
She is an underwritten character.
Yes.
she is. Yeah, well, I actually want to piggyback on one of your points, which is like, yeah, she has that stone cold calm when she's having the arrow like pulled on her, but I really appreciate the way like Sirtis plays the oh fuck, okay, we're fine when the instant the arrow is no longer on her, because like she's not inhuman.
Yeah.
Like she is like, guess what?
Invented
She's
that,
still
yeah.
someone who was under mortal threat, and it's like I appreciate that moment of vulnerability, and she's not castigated or look down upon that. It's like, no, that's a completely normal human reaction. Like, given how much TNG would frequently take female characters to task for daring to be human and like denigrate them and imply awful things about their impulses, I'm kind of glad that that was just allowed to sail through like it would for any other character.
Okay, so Wesley Crusher does not appear on this episode. This is the second time we've seen because we just watched Up the Long Ladder and he's not appeared on that episode also. This also features the final direct reference to Dr. Pulaski on the show. She's never mentioned again on TNG. I have to clarify that
It's
after
such a
this.
shame when she fell down that turbo ship laughed.
Yeah, so no more Pulaski. Otto, what have you got before we get the loaf of bread out?
Yeah, I just because we did watch Up the Long Ladder, I do kind of want to hit this point. Does this cross the line for you in terms of appropriation? With Native Americans, we get the pan flute, we get the terminology, the hornbuck. They reference in dialogue that they put on brown face to blend in with these people. This watch through, I felt like it. I can't really give you an answer. It rides the line. There's a few moments where you're like, oh, I wish they changed that. But other moments where they tap into the mysticism of it that really elevates the episode without directly mentioning it's just because when I feel like when they need small-minded, superstitious people, they end up going a lot of times, especially in Voyager, with the native theme.
Yeah.
Did this ride the line? Did it cross the line? What do you guys think?
This is very typical Star Trek. I mean, even going back to TOS, think if I can eat pluribus.
Miri.
Well, it doesn't make it better, but
it does. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But it is a very trope of, and this is not going to be the first, and it's not the last time it's done it. Even modern Trek does it to a degree as well, where your simple-minded folk are talking about the All Father, and we tracked it through the stars, and we saw a person disappear to the heavens, and it's sort of very kind of simplifying things, and that can be interpreted as certain racial tropes. I wouldn't say specifically, this is me talking from a white British person, like Native American. There are certain European trends that also can be attributed to it, but from the location of where it was written from, yeah, you're probably right. This is more sort of like Native American coded than anything else, but I wouldn't say it's offensively so. I just think maybe it's more just a case of like laziness on the writing's part to say like, right, let's just make them a little bit simple sounding. But they pull through a little bit with their reason and their dialogue. Someone more eloquent try and say what I'm saying.
Well, and I do think it hits different for the Americans in this group than it does for others, just because we have seen a lot of it. But I think it is a lot of visual language, visual shorthand to try and not convey that without having to put too much dialogue into it. But does that make it good? No. Does that make it right? Absolutely not. It was not necessary to make these choices. It's like, because I don't know, especially if you're taking it from the perspective of proto-Vulcan, it's like, what in the tableau of Vulcan history really ties into something like this?
Okay, but what do you change?
The beads and the bows and
what do you change here? Because all primitive cultures use bows. Like that is like essential. In saying like going for like bronze axes, you look through any kind of like archaeology and you sort of see certain trends between developing things. Like what specifically makes this? And this is not me like antagonizing. I just want to delve into it a little bit. But like,
sure.
What makes this specifically a sort of like an American Native American kind of trope, as it were?
Well, I did mention a few of them: the pan flute, the calling out that they changed their skin tone and beat me down, which I don't want to get too much in the weeds. When I think of, like you said, Big, proto-Vulcan, early Vulcan, in the motion picture, early on when Spock is there, I think of these towering, gigantic, the red stone figurines, and like the volcanic landscape. If they would have leaned into that, like maybe their gods, plural, are these giant mythic creatures. Maybe they have some statues built to them. They could lean into that instead of the superstition and the simple-mindedness. So,
yeah, I could see that. And I guess some of it is just they always had access to the Vasquez rocks, so that's just what they're gonna do. But yeah, it rubs me the wrong way. It's the sourest note in this episode for me, I think.
It's not. Hey, in the history of Star Trek, it's certainly not egregious, but I feel like you notice it at least.
I've got two thoughts on this. One, I think that you have to kind of ask yourself, and I think Idol's kind of driving at this point a little bit, which is that, okay, this came out in 1989, 1990.
Yeah, roughly. Yeah.
Logically, what's the alternative choice? what do you go with instead of Native American? Do you go with like what evokes that?
Feeling affection.
I guess like yeah. And my other thought is that the reason part of the reason why I think it didn't come across as specifically Native American for me for a while until you kind of mentioned it was that the spirituality is completely different. This is not how Native American spirituality conceptualizes the world in terms of an overseer and one monolithic god that like has that kind of power. That's not how Native American mythology really characterizes.
Well, they talk
I know
about
that,
gods
like,
controlling the weather. There is certainly some dialogue in there that is in the native belief structure.
I guess, but like if you like, I guess what there was an X-Files episode I watched recently that was about like specifically about werewolves in that one, which was whatever. But it is certainly adjacent, but I feel like it lacks that specificity. And it reads enough as generic precursor culture or pre-modern culture, pre-industrial Bronze Age-ish. I think it definitely does twinge more towards Native American than it would if you did say it now. But I just sort of question, if you were in charge of communicating this era of humanity or just of civilization, what would you go for as an alternative rather than the pan flutes and like the kind of the vaguely Native American iconography? What would you choose as an alternative?
I think
Well,
that's
I mean,
something
Like, that's a
that's
genuine
you
question.
You
Like,
guys need
I mean,
to
you
look
could-
at
you
it.
could go-
anthropologist, so
Yeah, I mean, you could go like a Sumerian route, like a Proto-Indian kind of route. You could go.
You still got pan pipes.
Egyptian.
No
You
matter
could-
what you've got pan
Yeah,
pipes.
I mean, yeah.
Actually, the I think it's one track when he beams up Nuria, and then in the into the observation lounge. That's my favorite track. There's a lot of synth in that one. I don't think it's very pan fluty from memory, and it evokes, like I said, the mysticism that you're going for. But there's something you said. I don't know when stars. It always comes up in my head. You're like, you were in the middle of a rant. You go, "You're a sci-fi writer, for God's sake, write something else." Like they could have gone any direction that just tiptoed through mysticism without hitting those touchstones that we're familiar with, at least as Americans, as being culturally native. Like I say, it's not egregious. I just feel like it's because of the last episode, the Space Irish was so bad.
Yeah,
I feel like this is a better way of handling it, but it's still...
It is still. I mean, you've got to think they're playing into sort of like they're serving to the general audience what a familiar note that they can play to people to get them to pay attention to. Not necessarily indicative of like the writers saying like, oh, we're going to portray them as Native Americans. They all love pan flutes. Let's do that. It's more a case of Ron Jones sat in front of his keyboard and went like, ethnic section, pan pipes, fuck it. Okay.
I don't know if it was quite that process, but
that's how I write music.
I also have to kind of point out, it's like you say, although I definitely agree that it is coded that way, and I guess maybe me and Idol might be missing out on some of that context because obviously British.
I mean, we're British. We
different,
colonize
like,
everything. We take everything. It's fine.
Yeah. But it's also like it stands in such strong relief to the stuff that we'll get in Voyager with Chakotay,
Yeah, it's the lesser of the evils here. How about, while we're talking about these pan flutes, we enjoy a nice slice of bread whilst eating them. So let's have some bread. The moment or subject in the episode that took you by surprise and made you go, oh shit, that's like bread from Babel. Stars starts off. What was your bread of the episode?
So there was a specific shot that I don't know if I've ever really like paid close attention to it, but it just stuck out to me a lot in this viewing. It's from the ready room scene between Nuria and Picard, where she's grasping at the Stargazer model. And there was just something about the way that it was shot, like a certain intimacy to touching that physical prop in a way that no one, I think, ever touches it in the rest of the series. That just kind of struck me. And like, if you think about it in terms of like you're trying to grasp something that is completely alien to you, the shape that is so recognizable to us that we understand the history of and the significance of because we've been through the battle and peak performance, and we understand exactly what this is. And to her, it's just a strange iconography, this strange object. and trying to grasp the physicality of it and what she's trying to understand it to be. I think it was just a really, it's not overplayed, like it's only lasts for a few seconds, but if you think about it, it kind of boils down a lot of what her internal struggle is at that moment, in just a really, really effective way. It hadn't occurred to me in any of my other watchings of this episode. I really liked it. That was my bread.
Okay, I'm going to go next. My bread of the episode was early on, and it's when the sort of the force field goes off, and Liko climbs up the rocks, and then his head just pops up into the views, into the sort of little panel, and he's just sort of like disembodied head as everyone notices, and like I think it's Data that first notices, and he sort of sits down. It's a weirdly comic kind of angle for them to sort of, he can sort of climb in or sort of look from a distance, but no, it's just sort of like the Muppet headed his way up into sort of looking in this room. That's my bread. Auto, do some breading for us.
So when I think about this episode, I do think about so Gene Roddenberry, when his name comes up and we talk about the behind the scenes of other Star Trek, it's usually him complaining to writers and showrunners that people wouldn't react like this in the future. We've worked out these things, we're evolved now, you wouldn't have these conflicts. And so when I think about this episode, I think about how Gene it is, and that it feels like they've worked things out. They wouldn't have those conflicts. I think about how dispassionate Picard is, and that boils down to the line, well, then why didn't you let them die? And it's so cold. And intentionally so, because like we said earlier, it's meant to emphasize why the Prime Directive exists. He knows Bev well enough. He knows she would never tolerate that. It's completely rhetorical. He's basically saying, just remember the Prime Directive. So that line, why didn't you let them die, is out of character, I think, with a lot of the rest of Patrick Stewart or Picard in TNG, but it hits hard.
Big Brandis.
So I noticed something kind of silly in this rewatch, and it's when Riker is getting Palmer out of the hut to where they can beam him away. How he looks like he is at death's door for the entire time that he's in the hut, basically. And then when Riker picks him up, he just trots right up the stairs as he needs to, right alongside Riker, because they really don't have another choice to get him out of there. And then finally, when they go down the stairs to get out, he stumbles a little bit. But until then, he was, going stride for stride with Riker. So it's like, not quite so dead as we were made to believe.
I forget who it was that said that, but isn't it wild that like this entire colony just has 7 people, like in the entire place? Like it's
it's budget. I mean,
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
The best
If you did it
advice I
nowadays,
can
you'd
give
have
you
more.
Is to just be yourself.
You're the worst thing that ever happened to Zek. You're the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Actually, that's the second best piece of advice.
In fact, you're the worst thing that ever happened to the entire Ferengi Alliance. No! Just stop saying that.
Death target.
I'm going to start campaigning for the original Trigger back. I just want you to know.
Oh, I'm changing it every week. I told you I was getting it. Okay. Best and worst moment.
You're
Big. Yeah, you're right. Big start us off. Best and worst.
So I am going to just shamelessly steal things that Otto pointed out while we were rewatching this in both directions.
It's not stealing if you get to it first.
Yeah.
Damn right. No, so the best moment to me, well, okay. One I kind of already spoiled is when Picard responds, is like, of that I have no doubt, just reaffirming, how much faith and admiration he has for the Mintakans. But a subtler moment that if you didn't know was there, you might miss is the little pat on the shoulder that
Fento.
I forget. Yeah, it gives Troy to saying it's like I don't want to be doing any of this, and it's like it's still recognizing your
her personhood.
Mintakenhood, whatever you want to say. Yeah, I don't have a good word for it, but your personhood of like you were not a prisoner, you were not a I mean you are a prisoner, but you know what I mean. So that it just says a lot in a little touch. And for
Riker ties him up, gags him, steals apparently their only link to God, and then all that, and he gives her a pat on the shoulder. He's like, I don't blame you. I'm not going to go crazy irrational like Liko. It is, you say a lot with a little.
Yeah. And the worst is the dead hand rising from the grave of, at the bottom of the frame, where this dramatic moment where, Picard reveals the mortality of the people that were thought to be gods by the Mintakans. And once you see it, you can't unsee it, that the dead lady's hand, because she still has to breathe, she's, spoiler, not actually dead, she's acting.
Death spasms.
Yeah. And her hand just rises and falls at the bottom of the frame with her breaths. And I'm never not going to see that for as long as I live.
Auto.
Oh, thank you. Because I there's the best one that I really like, and I was risking someone might steal it. When he first beams her up, I'm just going to read the dialogue. It's so, the lyricism, the rhythm of it, it's almost like spoken poetry. It hits really hard for me. Look at me, feel the warmth of my hand, the rhythm of my pulse. I'm not a supreme being. I'm flesh and blood like you. Not like me, like you. Different in appearance, yes, but we are both living beings. We are born, we grow, we live, and we die. In all the ways that matter, we are alike. It just the rhythm of his delivery there and the writing is like, that is Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek. That's why we love Star Trek. It's so great. Like the episode kicks into high gear. I mean, we do get that little conference room scene where he crescendos, and that's nice, but this is like, bam, this is the emotional climax of the episode for me, more than the reaction, the death arrow shot or whatever. My worst is just going to be Ray Wise's performance. I won't belabor it, but I didn't feel like he, especially in relief of Nuria and what little Fento got, I don't feel like he was great, even though he has to behave a certain way to drive the episode. Bread.
No. Best worst. But,
I know.
Okay, I'll go.
That's
next.
my punctuation at the end of my
everything is just accentuated by bread. Okay, I will go for my best first, which is going to say hello, Prime Directive conversations. This is probably the best one of them all because Picard talking to Beverly when she beams him up, and she even starts with a typical, "Yeah, I know, Jean-Luc, I've done it again. I beamed up a native," but this is kind of the first time, really, isn't it? Not the last time for sure. But yeah, the whole just like let them die conversation, like kind of hammers home the dispassionate of that agreement. But then how Picard's generally kind of forced into it. And he doesn't really come around on it. He'd probably sort of say, let them die again, but he makes the best of a bad situation. My worst, I'm kind of going to go for the rushed ending a little bit. He gets shot and then they're fine. It's a case of like, he didn't need to go down to the planet. Like, they could have ended it with him and Nuria on the Enterprise and her finally coming around and saying like, no, I don't fear you at all anymore. And then they could have then had that shot of them on the planet kind of working things out and going like, yeah, we're not gods. We work it out the best of us. So I kind of find that like that last like 2 or 3 minutes to be like, right, let's wrap the episode up. Let's go and done. So that would be my worst.
I mean, I disagree with you.
You may.
Because if he doesn't go back down, their last vision is shooting their god and he disappears. And that... The point of the episode
I was thinking
is
not even
we
bother
are
shooting.
alike.
Like, don't cut that as well. Like,
okay, so just cut the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, and it did make me think of something because if you're going back up to the ship and then coming back down, isn't the sling kind of gilding the lily a little bit to where it's like you don't really need that, but in the context of seeing who you thought was a god as just a wounded human being, then yeah, I think
He
you going
beams
down
up
with
again,
the
comes down in a
slaying-
crutch, beams up again, comes
really
down in a neck
yeah.
brace.
Well, it sells it a little bit
Yeah,
more
it does.
completely as vulnerability and mortality.
The point of the episode is we are alike, and he wants to show that, yes, you've damaged me as you would have been damaged by the arrow, but we're more alike than we are different. So I think it was a good capstone. It is a little bit like Sermon on the Mount / Sunday school, like he sits while they all gather around him and he dispenses wisdom, but I do think it works.
I'm not a god, but I'm incredibly poignant. Stars, best worst.
My best, I think I'm just going to have to go for the Nuria Picard bit in the ready room, especially because I just really not in the ready room, in the conference room rather. Especially, I just really appreciated the lighting, and Picard's understated, but also just very. You can exactly grasp what his emotional state is and the stages that he's working through. Like Nuria is, if you don't have a good actress in Nuria, this entire episode falls apart. You need to be able to empathize with her, and you need the chemistry between her and Patrick Stewart so that you believe that they can come to a understanding and grasp one another as beings. So, I kudos to the actress. I don't know her name, but she did absolutely. Guess what? Anytime you can get into a room with Patrick Stewart and match his performance, especially one that is as Shakespearean and big as this one, guess what? You're doing good fucking work.
It was a good reflection for him
I'm
to bounce
shocked-
off of, because she was sort of very spoken. She's like, well, we lived in huts, and she sort of had the very
their leader. Yeah.
and she was their leader, but then she spoke simply in a kind of way we were kind of criticizing. But then that actually does lead to Picard sort of having that sort of discussion of
I wouldn't criticize her at all for
no.
that. What is the line, magic and technology? They're going through the steps of drawing the line for her, but I think that works. The simple-mindedness is not the issue. It's how they choose to exemplify it in other areas.
I feel like, and this is a difference between her and Ray Wise's performance. It's like you can still convey a sense of intelligence, even if you can't convey a full grasp of complex language. And she can do that, whereas Ray Wise never really gets there. Yeah. So it's not saying that he's dumb necessarily, but it's just he doesn't convey that same sense of I'm going. Yeah, it's I'm not there yet, but I'm going to get it.
You can trust that they will get there, right?
Yeah. With people like Nuria and Fento, you absolutely believe that the Mintarkans will achieve what their path that is uniquely theirs that was worth protecting. It's absolutely great. I'm shocked that no one went for the worst, which is just Dr. Warren. Dr. Warren, the worst xenoanthropologist I can possibly imagine. Just hey, what do we do about this Prime Directive contamination? Lol, beam down and say you're their god, that'll fix it. I've got some commandments ready. I've just been sitting back in my fucking monitoring station, writing these up on just such an occasion. Yeah, I bet you fucking have, Dr. Warren. He's such an idiot. He just has... I guess it ties back to, it's the unique privileged position that Picard has as a Starfleet, philosopher king who can be all of these things to everyone. And this is just, a guy who has been sitting in an observation post for God knows how long. But just he completely lacks perspective in a way that is so damning. He's such an idiot.
He probably sabotaged the power relay to try and sort of do the whole if I do this, I'll become their god.
And you would think if he has been in some kind of long-term observation of these people, that he would care about these people and care about their development. But no, he's just willing to chuck it at the first sense of danger or disruption.
I think he does care. That's how he chooses to express that care. He probably feels like after years or months or whatever, he knows them well enough to know how they would react to Picard giving. Maybe I'm just adding subtext where there is none. I also think he doesn't emote great in other areas, especially when the lady dies in sickbay. So, but
adding subtext, us Star Trek fans.
He's
What is
such
this,
a
Twilight Zone?
yeah. It's not a great performance, and he is just as a character. Like I, as Picard, would hear that, and I'd be like, "Cool, you're never going on a first contact expedition ever again. You're on a core world, and you're gonna do reports for the rest of your life because you're a fucking idiot."
Maybe that's why that's the anguish Picard gets, is because he thinks this guy's so bad at his job. I've
Yeah.
got to lay into him a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me while I do your job for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Not good enough, damn it.
Well, I
Not
do it-
good enough.
Not good enough.
Speaking of,
I can show you my rating code.
Schiller rating 3-5. Associational rating norm -3. That's much too low a rating.
Is not accustomed to seeing an unsatisfactory rating on a member of my crew.
Big, this was your pick, so this is your rating code.
Yeah. Well, I want to throw an honorable mention to the one that we talked about during the episode of what the actress. What was the character's name again? I should have the IMDb pulled up or something. Yeah. No, not Nuria.
Savick?
Oh,
Yes.
oh,
OG?
yeah.
What's her name?
OG.
Oh, OG. Yes. That she very much looked like a Renaissance fair Savick to me.
Yeah, Renver Savick. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yes. But so in nod to the one scene of fun exchange between Troy and Riker as they're walking to the camp, how many negotiations for Riker's services out of 10 do you give this episode?
This feels like a Brenner
That could
Odell
also
moment.
describe up the long ladder. Yeah, I was going to say.
Yes.
Big. Stars. You take us away first.
Yeah, I don't think this episode is perfect. I think that there's issues with Warren's performance and some of the writing there. I think that Otto is right that like there's a slightly limited 21st century scale to 20th century actually to how to conceptualize this stage of a civilization's development. There's a little bit of a meandering to that early section. But fuck all that. It's an amazing archetypal episode that sets down so much of what is good about Star Trek. And like we said, if you're gonna make one half of your episode better than the other, make it the second half so that you go out on a high. And like, you know, like the ending scene is maybe a little bit like, oh, everything's wrapped up now and it'll be fine. But there's still that emotional core of being handed the heirloom that we know for a fact he keeps for decades afterwards. There's like a genuine like stake to this. This mattered. And in the wider context of Star Trek, it's absolutely integral because you finally this is the ultimate proof you need of why the Prime Directive is important and why Starfleet needs it. But also the contradictions inherent within and how much of how integral to humanity as Gene Roddenberry conceptualizes it. And it says so much about Gene Roddenberry that he had probably a lot less to do with this episode than he would have liked, in terms of actually showing his vision and the strength of it and the beauty of it. So I'm going to give this 9 negotiations for Riker's services out of 10. I think this is not perfect, but it is brilliant. It's incredible.
Okay. Yeah, this is a great episode. I'm not going to belabor the point because it is now 10 past midnight and we've been talking for 4 hours. But yeah, this is a good episode. It's kind of what I would categorize as a classic TNG episode. This is the Star Trek you fell in love with Star Trek for, especially those that were in that TNG era. This is the kind of like, you know, you watched the people that watched TOS and loved TOS and then got into the spirit of TNG, watched it for things like this, the philosophical argument, the natives on the planets, the science fiction elements of sort of, you know, being more than ourselves, and that kind of Gene Roddenberry vision that actually isn't Gene Roddenberry but might as well be inspired by. It has its flaws, it has its moments you can talk about, but I don't think they are too detrimental to the overall point. But I am gonna be, and I went 10. I facetiously went 10. I'm gonna do a rare sub digit here, and I'm not gonna say 8.5 because you fuckers won't let me hear the end of it. I'm gonna go for an 8.9, not quite a 9, but it's not quite there. But it's thoroughly fucking good. It's such a good episode that, and again, it's season 3 is just a banger of a season of Star Trek. It is genre defining in the best ways. Auto. 3.
Yeah, there's even for me. There's a lot of little moments. Fento, his touch. We get this great soft lens when Liko is first beamed up to the ship, and
I forgot about that.
Good direction, because you don't have to say a word to show where his headspace is at. He's in heaven. He's groggy. He's in heaven. Some and then I called out some of the tracking shots. The direction is good, I think. They may have overutilized Vasquez rocks, but it was to good effect, some of the early stuff. This is an episode, it's still, you're right, Stars. On the first watch, you don't notice the break, but for me, I noticed the break at the halfway mark, and we have to rate based on this watch long. And so how much credit can I give to one half? If I don't love one half of the episode, how much credit can I give to the other half? Turns out quite a lot. I'm going to give this, I love my malleable decimal points, but I feel like there is something significant to breaking the integer. I'm going to go up to 9 flat, same as you, Stars. It's funny how clustered we are on this. I'm going to go 9 because I feel like if you go 8 point something, well, then that's less than 9. Somehow that's like a step below. And I think it's hard to explain, but like I feel like that integer is significant. And if people were perusing the scores, and this should sit in that very top echelon. I mean, it's right under 10. This should sit under that because it is in so many ways. It's why we're sitting around talking about it, because you're not going to get this in 90% of other episodes, if not more. So 9 negotiations for Riker's services out of 10.
Well, before anybody even started talking, I was at a 9 in my head. So I will agree with the group, except for you, Idle. And I will give it a 9 out of 10.
Gotta keep the gimmick going.
I think, to me, apart from the greatness of the episode as a self-contained piece of Star Trek entertainment, it's foundational for so many things that come after. I mean, not just in season 3, not just in TNG, but just in Star Trek. Like it updates the concept of the Prime Directive episode for 90s on Trek. And it set up a lot of little other dynamics. You know, it's like you can see stuff like Troy from Faces of the Enemy can come from starting from this episode. And, you know, the ongoing conflicts, this was kind of the seed of just how much Picard and Crusher can disagree on what you need to do to serve the mission or serve the people. And you know, just every permutation of Prime Directive dilemmas, it all kind of starts here. And I think an underrated thing about this episode, and stuff like, you know, maybe like First Contact, the episode, not the movie, is seeing ourselves in the people, the more primitive people, because we want the future that we see in Star Trek, and them getting to see it firsthand kind of lets us see it again through their eyes. And I am an absolute sucker for that kind of stuff. It's maybe some of my favorite stuff in Star Trek. Just to be a kid again and to dream of being on starships and flying around the galaxy. That's what I got into this for to begin with. So it does have its minor flaws and quibbles, but I mean, I cannot give it less than a 9 out of 10. And so that's what I will do.
Fantastic. Well, at the end of that, we have averaged, unsurprisingly, a 9 out of 10 rating. which puts it.
Your vote doesn't matter at all, Idol. We've plastered over it with our 9.
Fuck it, I'm changing to a 6. Let's see how that. Anyway, so yes,
you would only be dishonoring yourself.
So this scored the same as the Stranger Worlds pilot, and Equality of Mercy as well. Scored better than Stig.
A similar feeling of hope in that episode.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that, but yeah.
That's another one that's in conversation with this, absolutely. Wow, nice.
Slightly a 0.1 higher than Stigma, slightly higher than Phage, which we rated very highly. Not as good as Best of Both Worlds, 9.3, which we just reviewed, or First Contact, or Way of the Warrior, all 9.3s, or the Ultimate Episode Peak Performance at 9.4. So, sitting in the upper echelons of good company.
Before we put Idol to bed, I want to give one last shout out to the writers Richard Manning and Hunk Beam Up, Hans Beimler. Just that lyricism that was my best of. If you gave that scene to any other Starfleet, if Janeway what's the word? Grasped, thank you. Grasped the hand and said, "We're born, we grow, we live, we die, we are like." That would be top 5 for any, if Sisko did that. You can just see how every captain would perform that scene. And if they all do it great in your head, you're like, oh, well, that's a well-written scene then. It doesn't rely just on Patrick Stewart. So shout out to Manning and Beimler.
And on that note, come and join us again next time. We will be back probably next week. We need to have a look at the schedule. I believe we're probably going to do some Andromeda on Wednesday.
This was our last review of all time.
Yeah, that's it. We're just ending on a high note.
Yeah, they had me back for the finale.
Exactly.
That's what this was all about.
No, we will be back. Keep an eye on the Discord and YouTube channel as well. I'll put a live schedule up when the next episode's going to be up. So at the end of that, thank you all. Thank you everyone in chat for joining us. We'll see you soon. Live long and prosper. And Death Target!
So, this is what we've decided. Lisa gets you Tuesdays and Fridays. I get you Mondays and Thursdays.
We, alternate Wednesdays and weekends.
Hold on, I don't think I'm old enough to hear this kind of thing. Ladies, good day. Romano, good luck. You can return my car in the morning. If you can still drive, I'm taking the bus.